Hello everyone, and welcome to the Narcissistic Abuse Recovery Care Network. I'm Dean, the host of the N.A.R.C.N Network and channel, and the host of the Unmasking the Narcissist channel. Today I'm going to be presenting to you episode 160 on the N.A.R.C.N Network, and the topic of episode 160 actually has to do with personality disorders. This includes bipolar disorder, narcissistic personality disorder, histrionic personality disorder, basically all the personality disorders that are out there, and the effect that cannabis usage has within these disorders. Now, I've been doing a lot of research over the past 2 months or so on this particular topic, and I was able to find not only a lot of information on the internet, but I was able to locate and actually read and study a lot of research that's being done on these particular things over the past couple of years. And some of the things I've actually found here is that if you have an individual who has a behavioral or a personality disorder, like bipolar disorder, or if they're borderline, or even if they have narcissistic personality disorder, because as we've discussed in previous N.A.R.C.N videos, all of these disorders do have crossover links within them where they have commonality. If you're looking for the particular points on that, I've got some other videos up on the N.A.R.C.N network that actually talk about these particular things. But within these disorders, it's this commonality between them where they share some of the affected things that are happening when you catch a person who has one of these disorders indulging in cannabis usage. Now, not to go in too in-depth into the points here, but when a person has a personality disorder like bipolar disorder or borderline or narcissistic personality disorder, we'll use those as the particular ones that just for an example. The parts of the brain that are affected by these disorders, and again, I've posted some screenshots and stuff in some of my other N.A.R.C.N videos about the parts of the brain that are affected by these particular disorders. But you can also look these up on the internet. If you want to find out what parts of the brain don't work properly in a person with bipolar disorder or with narcissistic personality disorder, you only have to just type that in on the internet and it will give you dozens of examples of where brains don't function properly when people have these particular conditions. Now, because the brains don't function properly in people who have these conditions, when these people consume cannabis, because cannabis has a kind of a sedating effect to certain parts of the brain and to certain parts of the system as well too, that part of the brain that no longer functions properly or normally in those individuals, cannabis affects that part of the brain further, and it affects the brain in a very adverse, non-positive way. Now, we do know, because some people do this, some people consume cannabis because it has a calming effect, a relaxing effect on them, and this is why they indulge in this particular substance. And this is true. Cannabis does have this effect on a lot of individuals. It also has this effect on people who have these personality or brain disorders. But the effect that it also causes in people who have these disorders is to actually further impede their brains from being able to function properly or in a manner that is positive for them, and they become further impeded in their behavior due to the fact that the cannabis is further turning off those parts of the brain that already aren't working properly, or perhaps aren't working sufficiently for that person to find any type of balance or chemical balance within their brain. And this sets off all kinds of things in people who have these types of disorders. One of the things that researchers are coming to understand is that people who consume cannabis, who suffer from bipolar borderline disorder, one of the things that it does is it causes these individuals to have far more manic episodes than when they don't consume cannabis, or with people who have that type of disorder but don't consume cannabis at all. There's a few examples on the internet of some individuals I've been watching who have YouTube channels or social media channels where they have currently or are currently suffering from bipolar disorder. There's this one particular younger gentleman who has been suffering from this disorder for all his life. He has been a cannabis consumer for most of his life, and he has just recently come to realize through some experimentation that doctors around him are doing, and through some other research that's being done, that one of the reasons he was having so many manic episodes was because of his cannabis consumption. So he consumed cannabis on pretty much a daily basis in rather sizable amounts, and he found that when he was doing this, he had repeated manic episodes where he had to be hospitalized for a period of time because they were so bad. Now, he's stopped consuming cannabis now for about 2 years, and since he has done this, he hasn't had one single manic episode, and the doctors are attributing this to the factor that he is no longer consuming cannabis. And this is happening with multiple people who I've been able to actually come across information on the internet in my research. And it seems to be that doctors are now understanding better and better that people who may be bipolar or have some type of personality disorder, including narcissistic personality disorder, these people don't benefit from the same effect that cannabis has to people who have anxiety or a calming disorder in this nature as it does in normal people. But I must say that anxiety disorder is also included in one of these disorders, that if you have it's in a severe form, you should probably not be consuming cannabis for that either. Because if you have anxiety disorder, commonly anxiety disorder comes along with a bunch of other different disorders that can be latched on or tag along with it. And you really do need to be assessed by a professional to know that if you've got anxiety disorder, that you don't have any of these other tag-along disorders at the same time, because if you do and any of them are bipolar related or anything of this nature, you should really not be consuming cannabis. Cannabis just dulls your brain down to a point where you can't function, or it actually does even more adverse things to your brain, and it can cause you to go into manic episodes and to have even more increased up and down behavior and feelings and emotions and stuff because of your consumption, because your brain is not able to regulate those mood swings. It already has a problem regulating mood swings like this, and the sedative effect of cannabis that cannabis has further impedes that ability for individuals to control that naturally in their system. So nowadays, doctors are doing a lot more looking into people who have these kinds of disorders and the effects of cannabis upon them. I have some people on the N.A.R.C.N network as well too that I keep tabs on kind of on the internet, and also because they talk to me personally from time to time here. I watch their social media. I also pay attention to their dialogue with me when they're talking to me, and I have noticed that individuals that seem to be cannabis users, I know who these people are amongst the N.A.R.C.N network people, who may also display any type of personality disorder or bipolar disorder, borderline disorder, or perhaps even narcissistic attributes that would point to them being perhaps low-level narcissists or something. Some of these people are marijuana or cannabis consumers. And I notice that when they are taking those things, they seem to have a lot of swinging going on, because I notice they sometimes post a lot of strange things on their social media that is a kind of up and down nature. Now, they may not be aware that cannabis consumption may be making their disorders worse, but this is one of the reasons why I elected to do this video. So anybody out there who may be a cannabis consumer, who might have bipolar disorder or any other type of personality disorder out there, I implore you, look into this, because the information on this is out there in cyberspace. You can also find information from any of the major colleges of medicine that are currently doing research on this. And the research points to the factor that years ago they used to think that if you had certain disorders like this, that consuming cannabis had a calming effect on the individual who may be suffering from these particular disorders. Now they're starting to believe that consuming cannabis is not a good thing for these disorders at all. And if you are doing this and you do suffer from one of these conditions, you should probably stop consuming cannabis altogether, because it's probably making your disorder even worse. And there is lots of research pointing to this at the moment, with good solid evidence to back this up, that this is not a good thing. It's not productive for people who have these particular conditions to be taking marijuana in the way that they are, in hopes that it helps their condition, because seemingly it's not actually doing that. It's actually doing the reverse. So this has been episode 160 in the topic of cannabis consumption within personality disorders. I'm going to say to you guys, please stay tuned. I've got some other content coming up on the N.A.R.C.N network shortly, and some other stuff on the Unmasking the Narcissist channel. Hope you guys have an awesome day, and I'll catch you very soon.